Are you looking for more out of your life? Do you need ideas on how to start new businesses and how to move forward in your own personal life? Well, guess what? You have come to the right radio show. At You Can Overcome Anything podcast show, you will learn and hear from many people from all walks of life who are sharing their challenges, their stories, the habits, and the mind shifts they had to overcome to become who they are today. On top, you will get a chance to connect and see how you can overcome anything by networking and learning about your next move through this radio show. I present to you our great speakers at You Can Overcome Anything podcast show with your host, Cesar Espino. Hello there, and welcome back to another episode of You Can Overcome Anything podcast show. It is your friend, Cesar Espino. And today I have a special guest. Her name is Caroline Bellenger. And I want to give you a little bit of her background before we get started. Caroline is an award-winning entrepreneur, mental health advocate, and wellness warrior. After experiencing childhood sexual abuse and over 20 years of addiction and mental health issues, Caroline enhanced her life by creating a toolbox of strategies that enable her to improve her mindset, self-esteem, and create the 3 successful businesses. As the founder of the Impossible, she has coached and inspired thousands of women to overcome their own life obstacles and create fulfillment and joy. She is the co-author of 3 books, including Amazon #1 bestseller, Queens in Sand Castles. She has climbed up to Everest Base Camp and competed in national sporting teams, including representing Australia in triathlon at 50. Her transformation and achievements are testaments to her courage and determination to define her future, regardless of age or past challenges. Caroline has dedicated her life to empowering other women through inspirational keynotes, books, coaching programs, and online educations. Wow, Caroline, how are you? How's your day today?
Yeah, very well, thank you. I think, sometimes even when I listen to all that, I go, wow, I've done a lot.
Yeah, you definitely have. And it's amazing. And there's a few things here that you kind of mentioned that really resonate with me. And I definitely want to dive into that. Tell me about your upbringing. Tell me about, are you originally from Australia, or where were you originally from? And how was that upbringing for you?
Yeah, so my mum's English, but I was born in Melbourne, Australia. Grew up in country Victoria, so which was lovely. I think growing up as a country girl. So
yeah,
I think that just nice, loving family. My dad was a pharmacist. My mum worked. Brother and sister. I was the youngest, so of course I had the temper. But then I traveled around, and I think that was partly because of my, addiction. I went to university when I was 17.
Okay.
But then I left university because of abuse by my uncle, which was still happening at the time. So that's when I found alcohol and boys, and the next 20 years I moved around all the time. I'd moved to the Gold Coast in Australia. I'd moved back to Melbourne. I'd moved to somewhere else. I also lived in Thailand, in Bangkok, for 18 months when I was in my 20s.
Yeah.
And then I also lived in the States, in San Jose for 12 months. That was Millennium.
Yeah.
Then came back to Australia, moved around again. I was still drinking and heavily in addiction throughout all that, and had my son when I was 32. And so I was still in addiction then. That was probably the later stages of that, and got sober when he was 7, at a 6-month residential rehab, and sort of have then managed to find somewhere to live and stay. So, I think a reflection of my mental stability created a physical stability.
Yeah, no, definitely. So I want to take it a little bit back, because I know there might be instances where people might be going or have gone through something similar as you, yet they haven't built the courage to do certain things. So tell me about the child sex abuse. At what age was that? How did that started? How did that all unfold?
Okay, so for me, like I said, I came from a loving family. I was the youngest, so I think I always, I was always a little bit insecure. I thought my sister was beautiful and my brother was smart. So that's how I saw the world from as young as I remember. In hindsight, I can look back and go, I was popular at school, I was good at school, but it's not how often what we see and what other people see are different things. And so that's where the grooming process started with my uncle when I was about 7 or 8. And I became like his little princess. So all of a sudden, all these insecurities I had, I had this other person saying, oh no, you're the most amazing thing on the planet. So that started when I was like about 7, 8. And I like to talk about that because I think people get lost that sexual abuse only happens once the physical abuse starts to happen. And for many children, the grooming process, and my grooming process before he actually physically touched me probably went for 5 years. And by that stage, grooming is so manipulative that by the time he was touching me physically or, getting me to get naked, I was so confused because I thought he loved me. And, I didn't want to lose his love. And because I, had those insecurities, and you don't know what's normal then. So all those lines and those boundaries get crossed. And I like to talk about it because, like in Australia and around the world, sexual abuse happens to 1 in 10 children, if not more. That's just reported.
Yeah. Wow.
So it's not something that is just going to happen to some random stranger. It's happening all the time. And, most of the abuse is done by people that are known to the child.
Yeah. Family members, all that stuff. Yeah, right.
Yeah, whereas we educate, I grew up as a child being educated on stranger danger.
Yeah, that's true.
That's
true. Yeah.
And we still have that perception that if anything bad happens to our children, it's going to be because of a stranger. But the reality is it is more likely to be, someone who's a trusted member of the family.
Right.
So I think it's important for parents to be aware of that. Not saying like I said, I wasn't, when my son was born, it's not like it made me paranoid about it, but being aware, I think for me, I look back and I think the one thing that can really help children through that process is building self-esteem in them from a young age.
Yeah. And talking about that is very interesting that you mentioned, if I take it back where you say, you're the youngest and you felt all these insecurities and you felt like, wow, like, they got it all. And now you feel these things, right? That self-esteem, that insecurities. Yeah. And I've seen it in other cases where sometimes, like, I'm a middle child, right? So I feel like, the first child gets everything. Then then I come in and then I feel like I got everything. Then there's little brother or little sister. So I have a little brother. And then I'm like, all right, well, the attention now is not going to me, it's going to the youngest, right? And a lot of people feel that way too, where again, they feel like it's either, if you're the middle child, they feel like it's either the oldest or the youngest. If you're definitely the only child, well, then you're lucky, right? Nevertheless, my point to all of that is interesting to notate that, because that's where that power comes into play. So the power of the mind, like it can play different tricks, right? It doesn't matter whether you're the first child, the second child, or third child. There's always going to be something within you that is working those insecurities, that self-esteem, right? And so, looking at that, what do you feel like? Obviously for parents and or for kids, like, how do you start balancing those things so that you start taking away those insecurities so that you don't fall into a trap or something?
Okay, yeah, and look, and I think, and that's what I guess, like, I came from a loving family. So there was, at the time, look, I think a lot of my situation was, none of this was talked about about when I was younger either, sexual abuse. I think that's why I talk about it now, because there's still a stigma around talking about the subject, but we need to be talking about it. I think when it comes to the self-esteem part, I'm definitely, wouldn't say be a helicopter parent, and no, not every child deserves to get a medal in a race, because we still have to teach children the realities of life. So you don't want to be like this parent that goes, oh, you're amazing, and, send our kids on, off to do these things that we know that they're not capable of doing, But I think for me, building self-esteem in your children is about allowing them to be themselves. And like I said, every child is different. And look, my mum will look back now and she'll say, oh, I tried to treat all of you the same, because that's, what parenting tells you to do. But the reality is my brother, my sister and I were all very different personalities. So we all required maybe a little bit different.
Yeah, right.
And I think, again, finding out what makes your kids happy and supporting them to do that, even if it's, without putting those restrictions that, you've got to go to uni, or you've got to do this, or you've got to do that. Say, if your kid likes, like my son's just finished uni, but he loves cars. So he's now working as he's got an architect degree and he's working as a car salesman. And he's happy, and I go like, be happy for your children, even if the choices they make aren't yours or what you wanted for them. And encourage them to try things, encourage them to be, encourage them. This is a big one for parents. Encourage them to question you, and you as a parent is not always right. Yeah.
No, that's definitely true. And kind of going back to that, and the other thing that is interesting, I never seen it that way yet. It makes sense. It's kind of like, it may not sound proper, nevertheless, it's kind of like when you're in a situation that where they're preparing the prey. They're preparing you so you were being prepared for X amount of years. You set up roughly about 5 years, right? And you're preparing to be able to then hit that moment where I'm like, all right, I'm ready. The perpetrator is preparing the victim, and so therefore when the victim is ready, I'm gonna go ahead and move forward, right? And then in this case, that's what took place for you. And you're very right on what you mentioned, is that going through that, obviously you're building this connection, you're building this trust, you're building you as a kid, building all these different things, and so therefore you feel like whatever's taking place there's nothing wrong, or you don't see it as nothing negative, right? At that moment when it first initiates. My question to you is, at which point did you realize that this was not the right thing? And how long did it take you before you spoke or said something to, your mom or dad or somebody that you trusted outside of that?
Okay, so it continued. So it escalated more to touching, and when I was a teenager, he used to want to see my breasts or walk in when I was getting changed. And I used to go and stay with him and my auntie on holidays. When I went to university, so I was 16 when I started, 17 when I started university, and I moved on campus as well. So he used to visit me at university, and he would bring a big gift bag from my auntie plus money. So the thing he used to use with me was bribery. He used to give me money. He used to give me stuffed toys that were bigger than me when I was little. And that's where it went more to him. I used to lie on the bed where he would want to touch me. So there was still no sexual penetration or anything at that stage. I used to trade off. At that stage, that's when I found boys and alcohol as well. So at this stage, I think, for many years I'd felt uncomfortable, but I didn't know how to express that. So when I was at university, interestingly enough, I did tell a couple of people at university, a couple of friends, what was happening. And I did tell the vice dean of the university at the time, who in hindsight, looking back, was dating one of the students. It's funny what you look back on and see as, it seemed normal back then. And no one, said anything or did anything. So I think that then reinforced to me that either this was okay or that it was wrong, but I was the one at fault. So I left university in my second year, and I basically told my parents that I was leaving university because I was failing and I was no good, because that was easier to tell them that than to tell them what was actually happening. I then continued on, with alcohol and drugs and got jobs and things like that. I told my parents when I was 23 at a party at their place. I was drunk. Everyone was having a good time. I got drunk. It just came out.
Yeah.
It was one of those moments where it just came out. They were very apologetic. Obviously, they were devastated.
Right.
But it then also got put in the category of, we're really sorry this has happened. Are you okay? Let's move on. So again, that reinforced to me that it was my fault. So no one wanted to talk about it. And look, like I said, back then you didn't talk about that much.
Right.
It wasn't an acceptable conversation to have. They thought I found out since, and, that they thought by not talking about it, they were helping me because they didn't want me to be upset.
Yeah. Right.
So, so that's where I then carried that burden.
Yeah. And again, just kind of looking back at that and saying that, a lot of times, people don't want to talk about it, especially to the kids, because they want to be able to kind of cover up the wounds and not bring those to life, right? And obviously that's not the right thing to do. As you see it now, you got to be able to face it and got to be able to do something from that perspective. It's interesting though that maybe whether it was back then or even now, sometimes people don't speak up or don't say anything, or when you tell friends or in your case, it's like they don't want to say anything. And I don't know if that's the fear of whatever that might be, the fear of something can go wrong, or the fear of maybe by saying something I'm making things worse for you. And I think part of that for you, and correct me if I'm wrong, when you discover alcohol, was that also part of acceptance, feeling, getting your self-esteem up? What was the purpose of you getting into that?
Yeah, look, as soon as I got to uni and started drinking, it made me popular. I was in the popular crowd. It took away gave me confidence. It took away my insecurities. Ironically, when I was drinking, I would have regrets afterwards, drinking, but it then became it allowed me not to have to think about anything. So it was very much a self-medication of not knowing what to do with all the emotions I had about my uncle, about my abuse, about who I was as a person.
Right.
But, if I drank, I was popular, I had fun. And, throughout my life and throughout my drinking, probably even right up to the end, I was they term these days highly functional. So I had good jobs. I was just a party girl. I was the life of the party. I was always happy that people saw. So it was such a persona and a mask that even when I was having bad days, no one would have known. Because I never allowed anyone to know that part. And I think part of that was very much because of my experience of talking about my abuse and not getting the support or not having anyone speak about it. I had a learned behavior that if something's going wrong, don't tell anyone, because no one's going to help you.
Right.
And even now as an adult, years and years later, I have to look at when I'm trying to do everything myself, whether that's a good thing, which sometimes it is, or is it part of this pattern of behavior where I don't trust other people?
Right. Yeah. For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So obviously you wanting to, you went through a whole phase of addiction. I'm sure there was a lot of things that happened in between that. At what stage did you, I'm assuming you don't have any contact with your uncle anymore when you told?
Yeah, no, he died when I was 23.
Okay.
So around the same time, not long
Oh,
after I told my
yeah.
parents at the party, he actually passed away. So he was, I think, probably about 20 years older than my parents.
Ah, wow. Okay.
So he was my father's oldest sister husband.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So he wasn't really
So,
blood related, just uncle by marriage. Got you.
yes.
Yeah.
Yep. And they had no children
Yeah.
there. And, and I guess one of the things that I always kept quiet too, because I didn't want to hurt anyone else.
Yeah. Right.
So, yeah. And then I did my first rehab when I was 24. So just after that, the wheels all fell off, because it was assumed that even after this had been made public, it was assumed that I would go and visit my uncle in hospital when he was dying, because I was his favorite niece.
Yeah.
So I did. And I remember the day, I remember being outside the hospital, and one of the only reasons I went was because it was my birthday, and I knew that he would give me money for my birthday.
Yeah.
So yeah, I had a lot of money mindset and wealth values growing up that I've had to work on a lot over the years because of all that, which is interesting. And that's what I talk about it, because those experiences as children, still impact us as adults if we don't work on them.
Yeah. And again, it goes back to the idea of whatever happens to you primarily between the ages of 1 and 7. If you don't work on those things, they're going to stay with you forever. Right. And you actually went through a lot of things during those first 7 years, with the child sex abuse, and the fact that I'm insecure, and I have this and that, all of that. And if you don't work on those things, and obviously for you throughout your years, that was something that you hadn't worked on, right? So you were on rehab, you went through all of that, came out of rehab, or finally when you had your son, and when he was 7 is when you kind of gave up, and you were sober. What was it that changed? What was that pivotal moment for you to say, after going through all of that you said, okay, enough is enough, I'm not doing this anymore?
Okay, so I basically had just got back from the States, and I got pregnant, not long after I got back with someone here, obviously. I actually found out, which is interesting with the whole Roe versus Wade thing happening at the moment, I actually found out at an abortion clinic, because at the time for me, I was still drinking. I was full of self-hatred. Like I said, I moved to the States for a relationship. It didn't work out. So again, that just reinforced how unlovable I was. So then when I found out I was pregnant, I thought that I would make the worst mother on the whole planet, and that no child deserved me as a mother. That was pretty much my thinking. And I'd never wanted children. It was never something I wanted, but that's, probably through my experience. I found out at an abortion clinic that I was already 22 weeks.
Oh, okay.
So there was like, what does that mean? In total denial. I then went through 4 months of adoption counseling. And it wasn't until my son was born, my parents were going to look after my son. They offered. I had a really good job at a construction company. I had a really good job. They said they would look after him while I got myself back together. It wasn't until 5 days after he was born that I actually looked at him. And one day I was bottle feeding and just went, I guess we're stuck together. Like, I can't say, I wasn't maternal. Did I love him? Yes. Did I, I didn't enjoy anything about having a baby. Like,
Right.
honestly, like
Right.
that's even now, all my friends and people know, like, if you've got a baby, I really don't need to hold it.
Yeah, right. I've been there, done that, and even then wasn't that something I wanted to do. So
No, no. So I then moved back with my parents who lived somewhere else, and I was going to just stay at home for a few months, get myself together, and work were actually going to give me a promotion. So I was going to go back to Melbourne, take up my career, and life was going to be good. So obviously, I didn't go through with the counselling, the adoption. Not long after I got home with my parents, my dad got diagnosed with cancer. So essentially, the 12 months I was at home with my newborn baby, my dad passed away from cancer in that time as well.
Yeah.
So my drinking just escalated. It just became more drinking at home by this stage. My son was, what was the defining moment for me was I just got to a point where my son was amazing. He was like the perfect, like the universe knew exactly what I needed.
Yeah.
He was the baby that started sleeping right through at 3 months old. He never cried. As a child, he was full of energy, happy, talked to everyone. And everyone used to call him a little old soul. And we have a little saying where we go, he was a little spirit in the sky. And he looked down one day and he saw me and went, oh my God, that woman's screwed up. She needs my help.
Yeah. Right.
And that's how we came to be together. And I think it was just a point where, I had a good job, but I was still drinking. I was drinking in the morning. I would have blackouts. I was always a blackout drinker. So I wouldn't remember if I'd fed my son dinner
Wow.
and things like that. I'd wake up in the morning with the DTs and have to have a drink before I went to work. But again, I was highly functional. So not very few people would see past the made up professional Caroline that got her son to school every day, and it was this weird functional on the outside, just devastated and full of self-hatred on the inside.
Yeah.
And I think, and over my alcohol drinking times, I had a couple of suicide attempts as well. And I'd been on antidepressants and I'd seen counselors of all, descriptions. So I think it was I just went, I can't, he was so perfect as well. And, by the time he was 3 and I could actually talk to him and we could do really fun stuff, I actually started enjoying being a parent as well. So for all of a sudden, my obligation in life changed. And I now had this absolutely beautiful little human who loved me. And I felt like I was failing him. So I think it's as the minute it became no longer just about me, I was able to then go, I can't do this anymore. I need to do something. And that's when I booked myself into my drug and alcohol counsellor who I'd seen before, and then went and did a 6-month residential rehab.
Yeah. Wow. I gotta say, that's actually a really good point. The thing that you just mentioned right now, the minute you know that it's not just about you and there's somebody else, whatever that might be, it could be a mom, dad, brother, sister, or daughter, son, or significant other for that matter. When you make it about somebody else, I think that we start, especially when you're in a place of darkness, or you're in a place of this uncertainty and you don't know what's going on with your life. It's funny, I was just talking to somebody else right now, and we're talking about the idea of, well, I'm trying to find somebody else to they're going through this kind of like the divorce or things like that, and that that was my purpose, and now I feel like I have no purpose, because again they lost that connection, right? And so the minute you start making it about somebody else, as you mentioned, I think it's going to be, it's really important to notate that you can get farther, you can get farther when you know that. So That's
Yeah.
pretty amazing. Obviously, you went through all of that. You got that. So, at this point, did you realize, okay, I want to become? I'm gonna go into the work aspect. What I want to do with my life. What career do I want to
Yeah.
follow? What was
So
that?
as soon as I got out of rehab, I was, they said, don't do anything, don't make any big changes. So I went, oh, great, I'm going back to university at 40.
Yeah.
And they said, no, don't do it. And I said, oh, but I knew I needed to keep busy.
Yeah.
So I went back to university. I then also got a job. So I was single mom, part-time, full-time university, part-time working. I then also around that time, so I went back and did social science. So it was almost like therapy half the time as well. I did a lot of counselling. So I wanted to be a drug and alcohol counsellor at that stage. That was my ideal. I also, the big thing that happened then was I was going to AA for the addiction, but I did find it all a bit depressing. I then took up running. And I'd always played sport when I was younger, but I was never a runner. My sister was the good runner. But what I found from running was that once I got a bit better at it, how good I felt when I finished even a couple of kilometers into the run. It was like this weight of the world dropped off me. So if I was stressed or cranky or struggling, which I was, especially early sobriety, is shit. It's terrible. I'm not going to beat around the bush. That's hard work.
Yeah.
Because all of a sudden you've spent your life using alcohol to push down every emotion you've got, and then all of a sudden you don't have any of that and you've got all these emotions running wild. But then I found running. So eventually I traded my AA meetings for running because I went, well, I feel much better after a run than I do after an AA meeting.
Right. Yeah.
So why wouldn't I just do that?
Yeah. Do what works.
Yeah. And so that was the start of me realizing that I could have a life where I could manage my mental health, which made me feel like a better person. So that's where over time I did corporate work. I did my degree. I was in corporate. I actually went through terrible toxic workplace bullying. But during that time, I also went off and did my personal training certificate because I made that amazing connection between my mental health and physical exercise. So I wanted to share that with the world. Opened up a small gym, got into the fitness industry, and then sort of went, oh my God, what's this industry? Full of diets and stress and body image and full of mental illness is how I saw the industry. So I really pushed more than building a holistic fitness where, and even now it's about, you've got to, what I realized is for women that were coming to my gym, they didn't like themselves. And I said, well, I worked out that, you know what, you're never going to lose weight or eat healthy if you don't like yourself now. So how about we start working on you liking yourself first and see what happens. And as soon as women started getting confidence in themselves, they were making healthier choices. They were coming to the gym more often. So the exercise part made them feel great. So it becomes this circle, like a positive circle, where you exercise, you feel good. You feel good, so you feel better about yourself. So that makes you want to exercise and make healthier choices. So, and that's what I found had worked for me. The minute, and I can't, it's interesting because I can't even define whether it wasn't the mindset work before the physical work. It was that combination of both of them.
Yeah, working together. Yeah.
Working together. And that's why I say to people, just an exercise can be anything. If it's a walk to the letterbox for some people, that's exercise. Sitting in your backyard, meditating, exercise.
Yeah.
Find something you love and enjoy and makes you feel good.
Right.
Because if you're in that state of feeling good, you can then start using the mindset to challenge the negative beliefs. But if you're not in a state of feeling good and you're trying to tackle all these horrible thoughts, that can be exhausting.
Yeah. And you give up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Caroline, I got to tell you, you definitely have overcome so many different things, as we dive deep into all of this, right? From sexual abuse to addiction to suicidal thoughts to all of these things. And again, looking back now, as you mentioned, and you had mentioned this earlier, is that, just because you had that past doesn't mean that you don't have a future, right? And I always tell people that a past is not necessarily a life sentence, is more of an educational experience, and we got to be able to extract those lessons to be able to help us move forward in life. And you've done exactly that. You've done and created an amazing life by being a multiple time book author, bestseller, having these awards, helping thousands of people all over the place. And again, a lot of that it comes down to the things you've talked about, that mental health. There's that African proverb that says, when there's no enemy within, there's no enemy outside that can do us no harm, right? And that's very truthful. There's so many things, like the biggest battle and the biggest war that anybody's fighting is not the war that's taking place in the Middle East or whatever that might be. It's inside your head. That's the biggest war. And sometimes people don't realize that. And so when you are able to speak to and be able to empower, motivate, inspire females, thousands of females to really get unstuck and start fighting those mental healths and realizing that what the other thing you mentioned is, you are not too old to do anything. Like, for you to be able to do at age 50 that triathlon, I mean, that's amazing, right? And so you've accomplished so many different things. I guess with all of this, obviously you found a different purpose in life, and you're doing definitely a lot of great things with that. What is the one thing that's keeping you now motivated, inspired to do the things you're doing, to become a bestseller, to do that triathlon, to speak to females and pour into them? What is the one thing that's keeping you?
So again, and it comes back to exactly what we were talking about before, having a purpose. And I now know that my purpose is to inspire women, because I know how hard it is. I know how hard it is to get out of that trap. I know how hard it is to believe in yourself. But I look at my life now and how I feel about myself. And, I have so much gratitude. I mean, gratitude is my other key to life. I had that much gratitude and so much joy in life that I just want other people, to feel that. I want everyone else to be able to wake up every day and go, oh my God, I love my life. And do you know what? Without the toxic positivity, because I'm a very brutally honest person, and I will say to people, you know what? Sometimes life is shit. Bad things happen all the time. I'm not perfect. I have really bad days. Sometimes I describe my life as one meltdown at a time. Because I think we can't pretend that everything's going to be okay, because it's not, because life is tough. And that's having acceptance that life is going to be challenging, life is going to be difficult, but also being able to look at challenges as the perfect opportunity to grow, what you mentioned earlier. So for me now, I also go, do you know what? Because of the challenges, I am who I am. I'm a much better person because of everything that's happened to me. So now when I have a challenge, I go, oh, okay, what's my lesson going to be in this one? What growth and change and learning can I get from this situation that right now really sucks? So I even take that with an attitude of, okay, this is okay, because I've got through all the other stuff and it's okay. And I think that comes with knowing that wherever someone is, wherever they are in their life, they're enough. And I think I say that you're enough. Every person, no matter where you are, you're enough right now. It's part of your journey is where you are. Just keep pushing through to the next level, because you're already exactly where you're meant to be. And, you can get through it. And it doesn't matter what's happened in the past. use that past to fire you up about having a better future.
Right.
And yeah, be courageous and just try everything. It's like me with triathlon. Did I think I would end up representing Australia? I was in Switzerland in 2019. Like, did I think that was going to happen? Absolutely not. I just got on a bike one day, entered a triathlon, came like, second last, and went, oh, this is kind of fun. I might try again. No, I might actually even train for the next one.
Yeah.
And, and that's what I go with life. It's not about, to have big goals, but enjoy the little steps that take to get there.
Right.
Don't wait for the big goal to celebrate. Enjoy every moment.
Yeah, no, I love that. I mean, you definitely dropped a couple of different bombs here. I mean, again, key things to take away from this, acceptance, and, wherever you are in your journey, you got to find what is that purpose, have gratitude. And then you talked about really enjoying every moment in life. And it is true, right? And I go back to this idea that we are here today and we are gone tomorrow. And so sometimes we don't know when's going to be our last day. A lot of times we are living with this idea that we have 1,000 years to live, 2,000 years to live, when in reality, that's not the case. Again, it could be a month, a year from now, whenever that might be, it can really become that fast, and we just don't realize it. So we got to be able to live each day, in my opinion, as if it was your last day, because sure enough, there's going to be that time that it is going to be your last day, right? And so definitely I enjoy that. And so one of the things that you're doing right now, you're definitely helping a lot of people through, speaking, through your books, through all of that. Tell me, how else do you help, or what is your function in helping females get ahead?
Okay, so I actually just sold my gym 2 weeks ago, my gym business. So I've had that for 5 years. So I've moved more. I do life coaching. So I do one-on-one coaching or group coaching for women, either specifically with the trauma side. Obviously, I'm very careful in that, because I know a lot of online coaches or people that meet do coaching for trauma without allowing those people to process it properly through a health professional. So I think people have to be really important when they're looking at going with coaches, that they are also getting professional help, and a coach is there to guide you, not to process the trauma for you.
Right.
But the thing where I left uni and I didn't do counselling was because then I also found counselling a little bit too past focused. And I've realised I'm a very action person and future focused. So what I love with my clients is, we work through your processes, work through your past, but hey, how are we going to step you through into an amazing future? What is it you really want out of life? And making them understand that, that they've got so much already,
right,
to be grateful for. And that, sometimes it's just about teaching people to believe in themselves. So that's the main arm of my business now. I do business coaching as well. I've just started another business because, I like being busy, which is actually in technology, virtual assistants and websites, but for women entrepreneurs who are stuck in that overwhelm.
Right.
As well. So, and my business coaching, I do it for another company and my own, but it's very holistic based, because even with business coaching, first thing I'm going to put to you is, like, are you looking after yourself? Because, successful businesses don't happen when people aren't looking after themselves. Right. So I'm a big believer everything happens from within, and then we have the success and the happiness on the outside.
Yeah, no, definitely. So if people want to connect with you, learn more about you, about your coaching business, how can they connect with you?
So on my website, www.carolinebellenger.com, Instagram and Facebook are both at Caroline Bellenger Official. And apparently you can find me on TikTok now because I went down that road.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So if you want to see a dance move or two, just head over to TikTok under Caroline Bellenger.
Yeah, definitely have to follow you there then. Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and look, and I share a lot. I do little live videos all the time with tips and
Yep.
tricks on just, getting people to start going, I'm okay. I'm
Yeah.
enough.
Yeah, no, definitely. And so, obviously you've gone through a lot and we've kind of touched base on this. What I'm interested to know is what are your daily habits? What kind of rituals do you have to really keep you positive, moving forward, keep you happy? Do you have any daily habits that you do every day?
Yep, absolutely. So I generally get up for 5 o'clock in the morning, and I'll do exercise of some description, whether I do ocean swimming, running, bike riding, gym. Now that I don't have the gym, that's freed me up to do even more of that. I also have a non-negotiable every day, which is my cup of coffee at the beach.
Okay, nice.
And that's, I found that when I was in the toxic workplace situation, that just settled me for the rest of the day.
Yeah.
So like I said, I'm a big believer in connection to nature. So, I love that. During the day, I think gratitude as well. Like I think my gratitude practice is incorporated into everything I do.
Got it.
And, at night I do a meditation before I go to bed every night. So I thought I'm not very good at meditation because my head's always like going 100 miles. Yeah. But what I do is a tip for anyone who struggles is I just put it on before I go to bed and it makes me fall asleep. But we all know that our brain is still working while we're asleep. So I get the meditation and I sleep better. I'm winning.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah. So just be kind to yourself is the big thing too. And if you're not having a good day, take time out.
Yeah, definitely. No, and those are definitely great tips and great ideas. I got to tell you, there's so much things we cover and just really the journey you've gone through and a lot of things, and there's some things that maybe call for a different show, like even just bowling at the job force, and then that's something that is huge. It's like a lot of people think that only happens when you're a kid. That also happens, as an adult, and there's definitely a big topic because it creates again a lot of those things going on in your head, the self-esteem and things of that nature. Nevertheless, you've been able to overcome a lot of them, and you've been able to show up in your life in different ways. So definitely, I want to commend you for that. What an amazing story, and definitely a super achiever of being able to overcome many different obstacles. So thank you for that, Caroline. Before I let you go, anything else you want to share with us?
Yeah, like I just want everyone to know that they are enough. Just every time you're having a bad day or a bad time, or you're putting a goal down, just remember that you are enough, and don't let society or other people tell you you're not.
Boom, there you have it. Definitely a lot of bombs and key things to take away. So thank you for that, Caroline. Really appreciate having you on the show today.
Thank you, Cesar. It's been fabulous. Lovely chatting.
Definitely. And then for the rest of you guys, do me a favor. Please make sure that you go ahead and connect with Caroline and go ahead and share this message because somebody needs to hear this. I'll see you guys at the next episode of You Can Overcome Anything Pocket Show. Bye.
Hi, I'm Cesar Espino, real estate investor, business coach, and consultant, and author of the book, You Can Overcome Anything, Even When the World Says No. My number is 424-501-6046. In my book, I talk about making the necessary changes to shift your mind for prosperity and certainty. Pick up your copy at Amazon. I also love helping families with their real estate and can purchase your house fast and all cash. Follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. My number is 424-501-6046.
Thank you for having me today. I am so glad you've tuned into this podcast. You can find me at your favorite podcast platform where you can like, subscribe, comment, and share. And to learn more about myself, my services, you can find me at www.CesarRespino.com, or you can also find me at your social media. Thanks for joining me, and I am looking forward to having you at the next episode. And know you truly can overcome anything.